إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Brothers, last week we discussed about adhering to the path of the Salaf Salihin, which is to follow the Quran and Sunnah and the Sahaba's Jum'ah. This is a very important topic and very important issue. Since this concept slightly contradict with the normal proceedings in some countries, especially most part of the world, we need to explore a little bit more. If we look at our societies, especially in some parts of the world, they have this belief that we must have to follow one of the four madhabs. However, in reality, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was not a Hanafi, where Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah was not a Shafi'i. Similarly, Imam Malik was not a Maliki, or Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal was not a Hanbali. So what were they following? Which madhab, which way they used to follow? They followed their previous predecessors, the Tabi'in and the Sahabas. And which way the Sahabas followed? The way of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the students of the Sahabas, they used to sit with the Sahabas and learn from them about how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught. But they were not given the name on the basis of the Sahabas. For example, the students who learned from Abdullah ibn Abbas, they were not called Abbasi. The students who learned from Abdullah ibn Umar, they were not called Umari. Similarly, Imam Shafi'i studied under Imam Malik for 20 years. He was not called a Maliki. The major three students of Imam Abu Hanifa, Abu Yusuf, Muhammad al-Shaybani, Zufar, they were not called Hanafis. So how did this blind following came later on? If we look at the history of the madhab, we will see that the scholars themselves, they didn't call themselves the imam of the madhabs. They didn't tell us to follow blindly one madhab. Rather, they said that whenever you get something, a hadith which is sahih, that will be my madhab. Iza sahal hadithi fahuwa madhabi, the very famous quote of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. He also said, it is not permissible for you to act on my opinion until you know where I did, on which basis I gave this opinion of. So, if we reflect on these things, we will see that they didn't want us to follow blindly, because they didn't want to get into trouble. So they cleared themselves. They said that, do not write from me, because today I say something, tomorrow I may say something on the basis of the hadith. So they cleared themselves. if we look in the history, we will see after 400 Hijrah, when the knowledge was getting dwindled, was largely evaporated, people get into sectarian mentalities. They wanted to defend what they believe, and thus they hold strictly to their own way of own way of understanding, own school of understanding. So if you see in that era, you will find that in the Kaaba itself, there were 4 different prayers for every prayer for each madhab. For example, during the Asr time, there will be 4 different Jum'ah. One for the Hanafis, one for the Shafis, one for the Malikis, one for the Hanbalis. This was ignorance. There are other fatwas, like during that time, I'm talking about 10th to 12th century. During that time, the school of Hanafi, the Hanafi school, issued a fatwa that a Hanafi cannot marry a Shafi. This was ignorance, only on the basis of a very little conflict. I'll tell you what. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, actually according to the Hanafi school of thought, they think that the Iman does not increase or decrease. Where the other scholars, they think that Iman does increase and does decrease. And that is based on the Sahih Hadith also. However, there was a speculative question posed to them that if someone asks you, Hal anta mu'min, are you a believer? Then a Shafi would say, Ana mu'min inshallah, that I am a believer inshallah. Where the Hanafis, they would say, if you say inshallah, that means you're not sure about it. And if you are not sure about it, that means that you don't have Iman. Because Iman, either you have it or don't have it. So if you say inshallah, then your Iman is not there. So in that basis, the Shafis who would emphasize on saying inshallah, they would say, the Hanafis would say that they are not mu'min. So if they are not mu'min, we cannot marry them. Or we cannot marry our daughters to them. And that was during the time where ignorance was all around. However, if we look in the Sahih Hadith, when we go to visit the graves, we do a dua from the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What do we say? Assalamu alayka ahlad diyari min al-mu'minina wal muslimina. And then we say, wa inna insha'Allah bikum lalahikun. Wa inna insha'Allah. So we give salam to the people in the grave, and then we say that inshallah we will join you. Is there any doubt that we will be joining the dead? There is no doubt. So inshallah doesn't always means then there is a doubt. If someone calls you, you are at home, he asks you, where are you? You can say, I'm in my house inshallah. Are you in doubt that you are in your house? So this is a way of speaking. And they made a really, really big issue about it. However, common sense prevailed at the 18th century, and then they came out of it. So you see, these differences of opinions, they didn't have a very big, the differences in the sects was not a very big thing. We would have differences of opinions in the matter of fiqh, and that is absolutely fine, it will happen. But then, if that happens, what we need to do? According to verse 59 of Surah Nisa, we need to go back to the Quran and the Sunnah, if we believe the Day of Judgment. So we come back to that point that we need to be adherent to the path of the Salafi Salihin, because they were free from this factualization. You'll also find another saying that the differences among us is a mercy. The hadith, Ikhtilafu ummati rahma, is a fabricated version, is not authentic, is a lie. There is no hadith authentically proved saying Ikhtilafi ummati rahma. That means that the differences among my ummah is rahma, is mercy. No. Differences are curse. Unity is rahma. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls us to the unity. وَاتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on tightly, all of you, to the rope of Allah, and do not get divided. That's what Allah tells us to do. Differences is not mercy. Unity is mercy. So we have to think ourselves, and we have to get out of the mentality of the sects. The other thing with this issue comes is the argumentation. Excessive argumentation. The scholars tells us to be on the right track, to be on the path of the earliest predecessors, and not to be involved in excessive argumentation. Now, what does that mean? There is a way for argumentation in Islam. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. So, debate with them in a matter which is good. So, there is argumentation is there. What we are talking here is the argumentation for the sake of argumentation. In this mentality, when there is something presented to someone, they would try to win the argument. Not for the knowledge, not for the guidance. They would want to see them victorious. So even if the truth is in front of him, he will not take it. He will go away, he will look here, he will look there, he will try to find anything that will make him victorious in the argument. And that is the danger. Again, if we look into the history of the Madhab, we will see this was a major fact. During the later days Abbasid Caliphate, when the Khalifas was not that much knowledgeable, or they didn't care much about the knowledge themselves, they were all into entertainments. So what they did is they used to set up their court, and then in their court they had their friends. So for the entertainment of them and their friends, they used to have different modes of entertainment. They used to have singing women, they used to have court astrologers, they used to have court jesters who would make the Khalif laugh, and they would have court scholars. They would take two scholars, one from the Shafi'i Madhab and one from the Hanafi Madhab, because these two madhabs were prominent during that time, in that era. So they would take two scholars and present a legal issue in front of them, and the scholars would debate to deliver the final verdict, and whoever won would be given a bag of gold. So that was the prize. So the scholars would argue. Initially, they would argue on valid things, but later on, you would imagine that the issues would be finished. Then what they did, they went to the speculative fiqh. They went to something. What if this happens? What if that happens? During that time, that is the reason that you will find in the fiqh book there are lots of fiqh issues, totally absurd. For example, from one of the book, I'll quote one example, that they said if someone was to pass wind in a bag and then make wudu and then open the bag, the wind come out, would their wudu be broken? Why would someone want to know that? So this was the reflection, this was the way they used to debate, and that because of that argumentation, they didn't want to lose the argumentation, because this is not only about the bag of gold, this is also the respect of their madhab. If they lose, their madhab lose. So they would try to put their life on the range. You have to smash him out of the way to win. During that time, to win argument, they would put their hands to Greek logic, different other logic, just to give them a benefit on the other person so that they can win. So you can see this danger of the argumentation for the sake of argumentation. So if we debate with someone, we debate in the best possible way that Islam teaches us, not for the argumentation itself. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides us, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the strength to be united, to come out of the sectarian mentality, and may make us victorious. Barakallahu li wa lakum وفي القرآن العظيم ونفعني وإياكم بما فيه من الآيات وذكر الحكيم. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات فاستغفروه إنه غفور بر رحيم. الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر المسلمين وفي فلسطين وفي العراق وفي أفغانستان وفي برما وفي سوريا وفي مصر وفي كشمير وفي بنغلاديش وفي نيجيريا وفي كل مكان. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا اغفر لنا ولوالدينا وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. أقيموا الصلاة.